culture eats strategy or tactics for breakfast. I think the unique thing that Intercom has, and I think there's very few companies like that out there, is they're obsessed. The truth is the people that charge the most are the most successful. The one thing I now know on pricing is not a weakness. It is quite the opposite. It is a forcing traction to force you to deliver the right value and to capture that value as much as you can to then accelerate your company. I was wrong. Like, this is not what the market looks like.
Yeah.
The world is made of people that go to work, make money, and use that money to make their life easier.
June has been acquired by Amplitude, so
Those are
you
like,
want to work with them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're like, we could definitely see ourselves working with those guys, right? My co-founder was poached by the fastest growing company in the world. The majority of the roadmaps of product managers are not solving problems. Biggest misunderstanding of PMF is that most of the time, there are some exceptions, it is gradual. Companies don't think they have PMF, but they actually might have PMF on a subsegment.
It's almost as if you were discovering your product market fit within a sales call.
Yeah, it is. And this is one of my biggest bias as a product founder.
Bonjour and welcome back to The French Product. Today, we're diving into the story of Enzo Avigo, co-founder of June. Enzo spent years building products at Intercom, N26, and Zalando before launching June, a tool that made product analytics radically simple. Earlier this year, he made a huge move, selling June to Amplitude and joining them as a product leader. In this conversation, we'll explore Enzo's journey from big tech to startup founder, how he tackled one of the toughest markets in product, and what really happens when you sell your company. Plus, we'll get his vision about how to be product-led, how to find your product market fit, and the mistakes that he sees SaaS products make. He's hands down one of the most interesting people I've ever gotten to talk to. And here's my promise. You will get out of this episode with actionable insights that will make you go next level. Let's get into it.
Enzo, how's it going?
Good, thanks for having me.
I'm super happy to have you. Like, for the record, I've tried to launch this podcast about a year and a half ago. I've had you as one of the first episodes, and I didn't launch, and that was one of my biggest regrets. But Enzo was nice enough to, before going to San Francisco, because you're going in hopefully a month, he accepted my invitation. So I'm really, really happy and really thankful to have you here today.
Glad to be here. I'm happy that you're, following through and trying to make it happen. Always supportive of this kind of project. So
thank you so much, and it means a lot. So I wanted to sort of like introduce you. There's a lot of people that already know you, so for the viewers, like this is not gonna be new. But I think that to understand you and to understand June, it's important to understand where you come from. So you've worked at Intercom, N26, Zalando before founding June. So kind of looking back at those experiences before you started your own company, let's say, what do you still carry today, in terms of product teachings and knowledge?
Yeah. So I bet there is a lot of people that don't know this company, so I'll give a bit of context. So I started I used to work in finance, feels like another life, and then move into tech. And the bridge at the time was moving to fintech.
Yeah.
So my first job was at N26. For those who don't know, it's a mobile bank company. Back then, it was quite game changing to have your bank on your mobile, but today feels pretty stable stake. So that was my first job as a PM, junior PM. Actually, I started as an intern, which is funny enough, and then moved to full time, luckily. So what N26 did was that I think they took a play that was fairly safe. Like, let's say we think that mobiles are going to become something, and some of the behaviors we had on our laptop or that were physical are going to move to the Pocket was a fairly safe bet to make.
Yeah.
But I think where they were excellent at, and what I learned from this experience, was the importance of the quality of execution. So N26 was obsessed with nailing down UX and workflows. They would work months and months and months on the perfect experience to send money to someone, to withdraw money, to change your card, to lock your card, to borrow money, and so on. And that sense of detail, I've not experienced it as much as I had at N26. And so my learning there was, if you really pay attention to details, and if your play is to kind of differentiate with a superior experience, you need to put a lot of work, a lot of effort. So they were doing a lot of, discovery calls. Obviously, they were doing tons of exploration. They were hiring great designers, and they would do ton of usability testing. We would do ton of, every skin would be triple checked by a user, and we would really collect the feeling that people had. So that set a pretty high standard in terms of delivery and in terms of like UX, UI, and I think I carry that with me. Then I moved to Zalando. Zalando is a giant e-commerce for fashion in Europe.
Yeah.
People don't know it much abroad, but it's like, I think it's like 3 or 5% of the GDP of fashion online in Europe. So it's like
It's big.
it's big.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a really big one. It's probably the biggest one, if I'm not mistaken. And there, what I learned, so then the company there was huge. There was like thousands of people. There was 1,000 people in R&D in tech, and there would be like dozens of product managers, right?
Yeah.
And when I joined that company, I thought I would enjoy it less than N26, but it was quite the opposite, just because the culture was so great. And what I learned there is that, culture eats strategy or tactics for breakfast. This is true. Like, you really, when you truly enjoy going to work, you get to do things better than you would in another environment. And 26 was strong, but the culture wasn't nearly, as good as Zalando.
So when you say culture,
Yeah.
what do you mean, like in terms of as a product person, like the articulating being a product person with like designers and tech, or the culture itself, as in like
the
how-
broader,
Yeah, okay.
the broader culture, like the product culture, in fairness, was a bit weak, because when you start, the reason they started, it's a company that were started by former consultant from McKinsey or something like that. So they didn't really have the product culture, right? They just saw the opportunity in the market to, again, put fashion online,
Yeah.
pretty obvious vision, but they were just amazing, really rational and structured at rolling out this vision and building this giant company. So they didn't really have the strong product culture. And in fairness, they had this guild, the guild they called it, where we would meet every month, and we were going through the very basics of product management. So that wasn't thrilling. What was great was the broader culture, this the kindness that people had, this sense of ownership that they were giving you to kind of like make things happen. That was another standard compared to my previous role. So I could literally come up to my head of product at the time, Anar, great guy, and just tell him like, I think we should do that, and then he would listen. I would try to convince him, and when I would, we would just go directly to the, I think, VP of strategy, Nicolas, and get that through, and start working on it the next months. So that was totally different. This bottom up motion and this sense of ownership we didn't have it at N26. N26 was very top down. Like, this is how we win if we want to rebuild a bank in mobile. It's going to take 5 years. This is the roadmap for 5 years. Go build it, but figure out the details.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you think that was triggered by culture?
Yeah, that was triggered by culture for sure. That was triggered a bit by the industry, the stage at which the company were at. You know, eventually you're giant, you start to slow down, and so you need innovation to come from individuals, and you need to have people that push the walls, because there is now so much walls in this company, right?
Yeah.
I remember we wanted to build something, then we would have to rely on an API, but the API was owned by another team. So I would have to change buildings, because they had 5 buildings in Berlin. And I would have to go with one of our engineers to shadow develop within their team the one thing we needed for our team, but they didn't have the resources to do it in their team, right? But that was enabled. Like you could just take a tram, go to another building, say, I want to be sitting with you guys for 2 weeks. And they would say yes. There's just so many companies where this wouldn't happen. There would be like some kind of, management fighting for the resources and say like, no, don't bother my engineers,
Yeah. Yeah.
So that one was really, really great. And then to touch a little bit on Intercom, Intercom was B2B SaaS, scale up, so super different. N26, consumer product, early stage startup. I think I was employee number 55. Zalando was giant e-commerce, making billions with thousands of employees. Consumer product still, but e-commerce, which is slightly different. And then Intercom was B2B SaaS, scale up, 600 employees.
Yeah.
Making, I think, 1 to 200 million AR at the time.
Okay.
And there, I think I learned something really unique in the product world, which is how to be extremely first principle driven, how to start really with the problems. I think the unique thing that Intercom has, and I think there's very few companies like that out there, is they're obsessed with identifying the problems that people have and asking you to shape these problems and then qualify their intensity, their the urgency around these problems. And one thing which is very unique about, we talked before we started the recording about discovery and delivery, right? One thing which is very unique about product management, I think, at Intercom is that the PM is almost exclusively focused on discovery. You spend your days talking with customers. You spend your days categorizing their problems into problem statements. They call it intermission. I don't know if they still have it. And then prioritize those problems and then figure out ways to break down those problems. And I think it's one of the reasons why I started my company afterward. Once you feel confident that you understand people's problem and you ask yourself the whys, there is really nothing else behind that. There is really no uncertainty anymore about whether this is a real problem that should be solved or which kind of problems you could be tackling, right? I think then there's a lot of questions around how do you solution a problem? Should you solution a problem? Or can you build a company around those problems, right? But being just problem aware is just so reassuring when you do product. So like in e-com, for instance, I would strongly argue, and same with a lot of consumer product, that the majority of the roadmaps of product managers are not solving problems. Like when you streamline a checkout process at the e-com company, what is the problem you're solving? Like, these are the fake user stories, Twitter accounts, like as a user, blah, blah, blah. And it's fine, right? It's fine because the main problems are already solved. You may be solving like some human problems, like, like people want to be inspired or people want to be entertained. But those are like super abstract problems in my opinion. And so suddenly you're starting to chase incremental ways of, making your product better. But I think being problem first forces you to move from one problems to another also much faster. So that was what I carried on from Intercom.
From
super
each,
long.
No.
Super
but
long.
It's super interesting.
Super
And
long
so
answer.
What? Why did you not? Because you have to have a certain mindset to start a company. So do you think that you had to start in already established companies, or what pushed you to go to these companies that are already established before actually launching your own company?
Yeah, that's a great one. So it depends. I think it depends a bit on your maturity as a person, and it depends a little bit also on whether or not you have a problem, that is worth solving, right?
Yeah.
So in my case, when I was in college, at the end of college, my first months after college, I started a very average company. We were trying to do a Spotify platform for brick and mortars. And after 6 months building a platform, we realized the problem was not worth solving. There was no budget. The pain was not strong. and even the feasibility was not right because internet bandwidth at the time in shops was very limited, and the IT departments really didn't want you to use that to stream music because it was the same channels that they were using for, you know, delivery, like managing the stocks and all this extremely important stuff, right? So going back to your question of, you know, taking time and having my own experiences, I could definitely tell the difference between this company that I started that was super naive and just was not even grounded on a real problem, and then starting June 10 years later that had real problems to be solved and so on. So I see a lot of people coming out of college and working on great problems and building great companies. That's awesome. I wasn't that person. I was very naive and I didn't have the knowledge. So in my case, it was much needed. I do think though that having at least, if you're not like a superior brain, which I am not, I do think that having at least one great product working experience is required. I see it in, you know, the way just exposing yourself to greatness and how great companies work will save you so much time on how you should do things, right? And so even like, you know, managing a project, which is the simplest thing you should do, unless you've seen it at one company or two that are doing it really well, you might just, you know, be stuck on this stuff, right? Even though it's table stake, right? Listening to people's problem, if you only work at N26 and you only deliver, you know, UIs that are requested by your management, you don't know it exists, right? But if you see a company like Intercom, then you figure out this thing exists, right? So this working experience can help. And the other thing that where they can help on, I think, is identifying a problem that you have.
Yeah.
A lot of startups emerge from problems that people have themselves, and then they go fix it, right? Because it's just, if you think about it, it's just so hard to be honest on whether a problem is real or not. Like,
True.
even when you talk to people, getting a real sense of, is it a real problem they have? Are they willing to pay for it? You can ask, of course, questions about it, and there are ways to, you know, to get the real answer, but there are often some biases too, right? But if it's a real problem you had and you're honest with yourself, you can save a lot of time here. So that's what happened to me. Those 10 years of working experience, less than 10 years, 7 years in product, actually made me identify a problem that I thought was worth solving. So in my case, I think it was very needed. But again, with June, I learned that you don't necessarily need to do all of that. Again, brilliant people that just graduated are sometimes super mature, super problem aware, and they don't need to learn all the, you know, old school management techniques, product management stuff, all these other things that a company requires to move to actually build real companies, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's required. I think it depends on you and where you're coming from, and also if you have a problem you have identified or not.
Yeah, true. So you're saying there was an aha moment, right, for you?
There was a aha moment for me. Yeah. I think the one thing that was aha moment for me is when I joined this first company in 26. Data analysis was just extremely painful. We had to use a BI tool, which was really good, by the way. But you had to learn SQL. So I was like, okay, it's a bank, you know, there is privacy reasons for not having data in third-party tools. We're using an open source BI, you know, they're one of a kind. Then I moved to Zalando, and Zalando was like, they were using GA, Google Analytics, even though they were $1 billion company. And so GA is extremely limited.
Yeah.
But the reason they were using GA is because at such scale and with that many product managers, unless they had a very easy product, no one was going to look into data. So I was like, okay, huge company, they're also an outlier, you know, like they have GA, they shouldn't, but that's life. And then I moved to Intercom, and we were using Amplitude, funny enough, the company we joined. And we had this issue where a lot of PMs were not using it. And it's actually one of the problems that Amplitude is really aware of and they want to fix. And I was like, how is it possible that, you know, one of the best tech company in the world, Intercom, using one of the best analytics solution in the world, if not the best, also struggles, right? And that was kind of the tipping point and the aha moment for me. I was like, okay, across multiple industries, e-com, mobile, banking, and B2B SaaS,
Yeah.
across different stages, startup, scale up, enterprise, the problem is unsolved. And the world, that was the world before AI, just you need to keep that in mind, was not taking a directions where things were going to be easier. It was quite the opposite. What happened naturally to most of these solutions is that they were going up market, targeting more enterprise, becoming more complex, more advanced. And so this idea that there should have been something easier for me to use in my day-to-day was the opposite of what the world was was leading to. And so that's where we had the aha moment with my co-founder. We're like, okay, if we don't make this happen, no one will, and we think this is like, greenfield and it's ours to take.
Okay. And so what's really funny, so maybe for those people who don't know June, maybe introduce June. That'd be pretty good.
Yeah, rest in peace. We should talk past. So June started as a plug and play product analytics. So pretty much a Google Analytics for product, with this thesis that modern companies are product driven, and so the same way Google Analytics was started in a marketing driven world, a lot of these static website, e-com, and so on, they should be the equivalent for a product first world that helps you understand product behaviors. We did that for 2 years. We sold the product to startups. They loved it because it was just like put a snippet and it just works out of the box. And we understood really well the primitives of product companies. So we had things such as features, right? We were one of the first one, I think, at the time to have this concept of feature in the product or things like that. Then what happened is we found out we had the stronger PMF, product market fit, with B2B SaaS instead of B2Cs. And so we leaned into that. And so we became some sort of what we call product analytics for B2B SaaS. So we are providing product analytics features out of the box for accounts, not users. So you could tell, not how many people click on a button, but how many companies have clicked on a button, whether companies were sticky on your product, stuff like that, which are surprisingly enough pretty hard to achieve with product analytics solutions. Something that Amplitude is working on and also making lots of progress on. And then we went super deep into the kind of like customer profiles, kind of experience, trying to give customer success and sales some really deep understanding of how accounts are performing in the product. And then we were doing a lot of integrations with CRMs so that teams could take some actions. So really the nutshell of June was we were a product analytics made for B2B SaaS and made for the way they are, growing their businesses.
And so what's funny is you built it in a very crowded market.
Yeah.
And so how do you have, it's not even the guts, but like what tells you, okay, it's super crowded and I'm still going to go? Because I've discussed this with Guillaume Moubesh from Lemlist. Same thing. They're like really, really amazing because they've bootstrapped the whole thing and they found their spot in a super crowded market, just like you guys did. And, isn't that scary? Like what tells you, let's go. It's super crowded, but let's go. I'm going to be different.
Yeah. Guillaume is great. He has this thesis that a crowded market is a validation of the problem. And so he would argue that it's better to launch in an existing market because there is existing demand than it is to try to reinvent a market, right? And then of course you need to make sure this market is growing or that you can differentiate, right? I think for us it was super naive. Like we had no clue really. Yeah, we had no clue how the market was really shaping. We knew there were some incumbents. We knew how we wanted to be different, but we didn't really understand the market dynamics. What does it mean for when there is multiple players in a space? How do people shop in that space? How much do people compare the solutions before they buy? What do they compare you on? Is there people that will just adopt your product because they saw you and they're not going to benchmark the rest of the industry? How much can you really differentiate from the rest of the industry? Like even if you adopt different words to position yourself, how different are you going to be perceived versus how much people are going to try to put you in the sandbox.
Yeah.
We talked before that about Linear.
Yeah.
Linear is doing an amazing job at differentiating from Jira, but people always mention Linear and Jira together. I think there was Adrien, a designer from Linear, on Steam's podcast recently.
Yeah.
And he was talking about Jira. And at some point, I think he told Tim, like, look, I should stop talking about Jira, but at the same time, we're here to, displace them. So let's be honest.
Yeah,
right?
it's the benchmark.
It's the benchmark,
Yeah.
right? So for us, to answer your question, we thought that from day one, we thought that we could be this different thing because we wanted to target a different persona. Typical product analytics solutions are targeting, or were targeting, because it has evolved, what I call the data savvy product manager, which is kind of the former CS, the Google PM and so on. We went after the generalists. We went after the founders. We went after the ops person who joined and needs to handle the product analytics use cases. We went after the designer who wants to understand who they should interview. We went after the PM who doesn't have a minute in their week to do their job, and so they don't want to, seek for a needle in a haystack. They just want to find the solution right away. We built for the 90. We call them the 99%. Like the 1% in Wall Street, the 99%. So we had this vision that we could differentiate from day one. I think what we learned though is that I wouldn't say the market is crowded, because at the end there is like probably 3 or 4 players, and they're all pretty different. But what we did find is that data industry is a very noisy space, and you're competing with noise. So the first thing we had to really explain to people, really teach people, is exactly what we were doing and how it was different. But people would, like, some people would compare us to the other product analytics solution. Some people would just say, you're a data company. How are you different from a customer data platform? How are you different from a BI tool? How are you different from a data lake solution? And we had like really high confusion kind of conversation in the early days. And that's why we had to refine this positioning again and again and be super loud on that positioning, because unless you really nail it, the message is not going to go through. And many times we thought we nailed it, we hadn't.
I remember your tagline was about making analytics accessible and beautiful.
Yeah.
And that was like, did you think simplicity in design was like, the winning strategy?
We thought so at the beginning, because we were targeting early stage startups, pre-seed, seed stage, especially YC by batchmates.
Yeah.
And we had this belief that they were looking for something simple and hopefully delightful. We then removed delightful. Delightful products are delightful by nature. They don't have to tell you. Linear doesn't tell you they're delightful. They just say like they're a better way to do something. And then your eyes see the product and you're like, it's better, it's delightful. If you have to explain something, usually it's a bad sign. It's like, those countries that include democratic in their names.
Yeah.
They're never they're the least democratic, right?
True.
Or if you go to a large enterprise and there is an innovation department.
Yeah, that's the
red flag. Like, there is no innovation,
true,
right?
True.
So it's a bit the same. We removed the delightful part and then we had the simple part. When we went up market, so we started with early stage startup, then we went to Series A, Series B, and so on. We just went up the ladder in a very structured way. We found out that simplicity was a synonym of limitation. For many product managers, which are very sophisticated personas that know their job really well, don't like to be told how things are done, likes to explore things, likes to really find the extra piece of information that the team hasn't figured out, and then come back with like Eureka, have it. Saying simple was actually make us least appealing to them. So that's when we dropped also that, and we used another tagline.
Okay, gotcha. And so looking back, what do you think went wrong with that early positioning? Like, what would you have done differently from the start?
Wow. Yeah, that's a great one. I think I would have adopted maybe a positioning from day one that would scale across the years. And as we were going up market, having to change your positioning so frequently, every probably like 6 to 8, 9 months, is actually just a bad idea because people have to, remember your new positioning. They have to forget the old positioning. So you keep attract the old customers you don't want anymore. You have to convince the new ones that you have a different story. And once you've told something to someone, like you seem less, credible if you change your story, right? So I would try to find a story that remains true and appealing as we evolve. And I think that's going back to linear. I think it's going to be the example I'm going to use the entire podcast now. I think they did a good job here. They reframe multiple times their story, but it's around the same concept. They're starting by saying like, hey, we're a delightful way of doing it. And actually they realized that delightfulness was a mean to an end. And the real end that they're trying to convey is building a product that have a purpose. And so now they position around this purpose thing. And I think it's the best positioning they had so far. I would have looked for that. So maybe the B2B angle would have been better from day one. Even though it's a bit factual, it's not very inspiring, but something around these lines of like, June was the only product analytics to help you keep your accounts or, help you connect with your customers and keep them maybe customers would have been a bad word because B2C companies are using it too.
Yeah, because you've pivoted a bunch since I've known you, and you heavily relied on product-led growth. Pretty famous for that. I think in France, honestly, that's why I'm super happy to be talking to you because in France, we're right up there. We have the Eiffel Tower, Camembert, and then we have Enzo's insights on product-led growth.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, how do you make sure you pivot without exactly losing, the people that you sold someone to? How do you make sure that you evolve, observe the signs, and not lose the people that you've signed, but still having an evolution, with your product, with your company?
Yeah, I mean that's one of the hardest thing as you pivot, as you said. I don't think we did some 180 pivots. Like I don't think we totally changed the trajectory of the product, but we did some like 20-30 degrees pivot, like like small pivot, So they definitely were like lots of evolution. I think first of all on the PLG motion, I've been very vocal about it. I've shared a lot of thoughts, and people are kind enough to listen to what I have to say. I don't think we cracked an explosive PLG at June. So we're not like Airtable kind of PLG or Grammarly kind of PLG, right? It's always one of the problem. Like I think we were as good as it can get for our category of analytics. Like I think our category was extremely boring. So it's not something that people shop around every day for. It's a category where timing is tough because people don't switch analytics tools every day, right? It's like CRM kind of. Once you buy one, you benchmark a few solutions and you're going to commit for maybe 1, 2, 3 years at least, right? Probably 2, 3 years at least. And so it was hard just to land a pure PLG of like people see your website, they click, they sign up, they activate. Like there's inherent issues. But beside that, then I think we got a decent. We pushed it as far as we could, meaning I think we made the brand very sweet and very kind, and that kind of reduced a lot the friction to entry because it felt like you were gonna use a toy. A lot of people say like don't build a toy. I think you should build a toy when you start. I think there is no commitment to buy a toy. I think it's the perfect foot into the door when you get started. So that's what also the name is June. It's not June data, June analytics. It's like just June, like summer is around the corner. Like just come and have fun,
I think honestly, I think PMs and this is I was super happy for the first episode because I had another geek with me, and I think PMs love toys. Honestly, like whenever analytics or whatever you will, but like discovery tools or something where you're gonna have to like do a recording, we'd play with AI. Most people that are actually passionate about this, they do. So whenever I get a new tool, I'm happy to play with it. For June, I think like there's June's journey in itself as a company, and this is what you mentioned. But I think that your insights actually translated in the features that you had
Yeah.
within June. So, for example, you were one of the first ones where I actually felt like I was knowing the power users,
Mm-hmm.
and this makes like a difference when it comes to, like Linear was talking about this on Tim's podcast. Um, Once they found, they said we're focusing on those kind of structures, those kinds of products where they don't go above like 100 people or something like that. And then all the companies that had over 100 people, they were like, we're not the best solution. Of course, we're going to serve your needs, but we're not the best ones. I think understanding, for example, your power users, this makes a whole difference because you're going to have a lot of people using your products, as you say, that you've signed on your product and you're just gonna use it. And there's other people that are gonna really like the product, really use the product,
Mm-hmm.
and those people you have to understand so you can get more of those. You know,
Yeah.
and how you know how do you make sure that all those insights you have about product like growth, like how do you super focus on those and try to develop those without losing, you still need some mass. Unless you're super high ticket, you still need to have a lot of people, using the product. So you can't use on just the fans and the power users. But
Yeah.
how do you balance?
I mean, this is like the hardest thing I think in product management,
Mhm.
and it's the one thing that, um, yeah, I think probably differentiates the good PMs from the great PMs. I think I tend to think that the the best things you can build in a product are dictated by your outliers. I tend to think that the future's general behaviors in your product, the future common things that people will be able to do in your product, was dictated by a couple of edge cases that a couple of power users
Mhm.
got. Um, and and I think you're right. I think being able to identify those people, being able to understand why you believe their feedback is great, I think is like a superpower. So I'm not sure if I'm answering the question here, but I think it's one of the superpower of great PMs. They are able, and this is like hard to say on the podcast because it's like it doesn't sound great, but there's some people that give you feedback that is superior feedback. There's some people you talk with, you can tell they really have understood your product. You can tell they've really understood your DNA, where you want to go, and they're able to provide unbiased feedback, which is literate and just smart and great. And you want to identify these people as soon as you can, and then you want to ship in their direction because if you think that you know they're the cross of two worlds of your vision and where you want to go and real problems that real customers have, but since they were able to formulate those problems and that others maybe couldn't or even identify them, that makes them superior kind of customers to listen to. And in all the jobs I had, there were those kind of customers. And it's horrible to admit because you, as a founder, as a PM, you could never say this customer is a better customer, right? It's like
Yeah.
if you're kids, you can't say like I prefer that kid. But that's the hard truth. Like not all customer feedback is the same. And so this feature, for instance, was a way to help you spot that and try to say, okay, you have maybe 1,000, 10,000 users. There is this 10 people who are obsessed with your product. Check out what they're doing. And if they're touching some of the stuff you want to expand on, well, maybe you should have a conversation,
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you talk about PLG and how this motion has evolved. I think this is like the vision part. Like it's very easy to see PLG as a go-to-market motion and see that as a different part of the business as product or the rest of the org. They all align. So if you believe in PLG, then maybe your product needs to be self-served.
Hmm.
And you need to have product teams that work on this activation. I tend to believe that go-to-market is actually part of your inner product problems that you're trying to solve. The reason why June was PLG was not because we thought of an amazing way to do SEO like Zapier, and we're like, we're gonna, crack the go-to-market this way and get the long tail, and then we're gonna convert these people, and we don't have to hire a sales rep. The reason why June was PLG is because we thought the main problem in the space was that analytics was too complex. And so if we wanted to stick to our guns and prove a point that we could simplify it, the onboarding had to be simple. And so if the onboarding is simple and people can onboard by themselves, we don't need a sales rep. So if we don't need a sales rep, we don't need a sales rep to do outbound emails. We need sales rep to do maybe inbound sales later on when we have bigger accounts or more advanced configuration, right? And so I think this is where, I think where this kind of go-to-market motion and changing them is so hard is when you have baked the go-to-market motion so deeply into your vision and the rest of your organization, and it graduates and it needs to evolve, then it can be really challenging because you need to change multiple parts of your business all at once. So June started PLG. Then we were doing a lot of inbound sales. And toward the end, we were moving to more outbound sales.
Yeah.
And we were layering the stuff, obviously. It's not one or the other. But the last iteration of the onboarding of June that was the most successful was for mid-stage company. So for companies with more than 50 employees for June, we would block the product. They would sign up. They would be qualified real time with the tool we had built. And if they fit under the persona, we would force them to take a call. And that has led to much, much better results because we had a really open agenda. So they could almost take a call now. So we made ourselves really available. It wasn't like just book a call next week.
Yeah.
So we were on the spot. And we were able to solve more problems for them in half an hour call that they would have solved by accessing the product in half an hour. So what we learned for these slightly bigger companies is that they were oftentimes benchmarking us against other tools. They were filling docs. They had a lot of questions about June, and going in the product, trying to find the features, going in our dev doc, going in our help center was an horrible experience for them. And if they could ask to someone all their questions, even within 20 minutes, they were a lot more satisfied and a lot more likely to activate and buy the product. But this was like a drastic change, right? Because if you're PLG and you have a self-serve sign up, and then overnight you saying half of the people are not going to access the product, you need someone who has the power to make those changes, right? And we took, in fairness, we took a while to make these changes. We took probably like 3 to 6 months, too many, to make it happen. We should have done that much earlier.
But it's funny. It's sort of like, it's almost as if you were discovering your product market fit within a sales call.
Yeah, it is. The product market fit doesn't mean that you're using it and you get the aha moment. The PMF can be go-to-market people are helping the product market fit. When you build the right marketing assets, the right content, where you explain what the product is doing, why it's unique, you have the right marketing website assets, the right positioning that just hit on point people's brain and the things they want to do. Or when you have a salesperson that is jumping on a call in a demo and explains the value of your product or address the objections or the friction that people have, this is building toward the value realization, which is, what product market fit is about, right? Yeah. So 100%. And this is one of my biggest bias as a product founder, coming from a world where I thought, I could just build and they would come. Yeah. It's a common, issue with product founders, I think. It's not. And there is just as much value delivered within go-to-market that there is delivered within the product. It's just different kind of nature of value, right?
Yeah. And so what mistakes do you see other product teams making when they think they've hit PMF, but actually haven't?
Yeah, that's so interesting. I think so. We were lucky enough to be an analytics company, and so we could see a lot of our customers' data with them.
Yeah, you would have the data right there.
That's amazing. That was the most amazing thing about running a company in that space. It was to be able to, take calls, look at their data, and do it hundreds of times and being able to understand, where they're at.
Yeah.
So the most common things we've seen is that a lot of the times companies don't think they have PMF, but they actually might have PMF on the subsegment. So the average retention curve, for instance, is very low. It's like 10% flat.
Yeah.
But if you look at one subsegment, it's 50% flat. And you're like, this is a great segment. Like, what are the problems they have? Who are they? Can you reposition on them? Can you just develop a new vision on them? Because those people already love you. You already have an early PMF.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big one. The second biggest misunderstanding of PMF is that most of the time, there are some exceptions, it is gradual. So assuming retention is another good proxy of product market fit, which I think it is. It's half of the picture. You need to also do qualitative feedback. Do people really love you? How would they feel if they could no longer use your product? This kind of stuff. So if you go back to the quantitative side, we've seen so many companies reaching PMF progressively. So moving from retention that were at 5, then 10, then 15, then 20, 25, 40, 50, 60, whatever, right? There are some exceptions. There are some companies that launch and overnight they go boom. And those are the outliers, in my opinion. And this is where, the whole founder kind of obsession, founder resilience is so, so important. Like, how many times have we seen some announcements of Series A, Series B of some of our customers? We knew their retention chart. We knew where it was 6 months ago. And we knew they were going to make it, while their competitor was maybe also a customer of June and just didn't believe in what they had.
Yeah. So
more than founders, I've seen some founders thinking they had PMF while they didn't. But usually they know it. The truth is usually slapping them in the face very easily. Like, they start to scale, they start to burn.
Yeah.
Then it's a leaky bucket, or there is no exponential growth, or the net dollar retention is average, and they, like, all the investors are asking for it now. But most of the time, it would be the other way around. It would be some founders not identifying they were on track to having PMF, or that they already had PMF on the subsegment. And this is where I think the American spirit is amazing.
Yeah.
Is because if you're like, the Americans I've met that have 100 customers and 10 that are raving about their product, know they're into something. The French founders I've met that have 100 customers, but then they look at the 90 that don't really like their product or are so-so.
Yeah.
Might think that they don't have PMF, right? But look at the, the fill side of the glass, not the empty side of the glass, right? And then there's some like beautiful and awe stories, right? Some people that believe they like started to scale, didn't really were not really able to consolidate the PMF. I've seen the opposite too. I've seen everything. I've seen people that had a really shaky PMF, started to scale, and then develop a culture where eventually they just close all the gaps. We have a few companies like that in France. The companies where we have founders that are raising lots and lots of money very quickly.
Yeah.
They often started with a lot of money, a pretty average product, but that's such a clear vision of where they wanted to go that they just roll it out. But trust me, those companies, if you look at the PMF signals in the early days, you would have to believe in them. So 2 companies that come to my mind, Pigment. Pigment went super fast. In the early days, they had nothing. They were already selling. Yeah. Pretty crazy. And the other one I have in mind is Conto. Conto went super fast, but in the early days, they had, really a toy. And the PMF was okay, but like not too crazy. They raise, and then just you close the gaps one by one, and eventually you end up where they are both, which are extremely strong PMF companies, but led by great founders, I believe, and I think they are like onto amazing trajectories.
True. So maybe let's dive into the big news. So June has been acquired by Amplitude. So Acquihire.
Acquihire,
Yeah.
yeah, acquihire. We're not allowed to say acquire.
You're not allowed to say it. Okay.
I mean, no one is gonna sue you, but
So, how did that conversation even start?
yeah, I mean, this is the first time I'm talking about. This is the first time I'm talking about it in anywhere actually. So
Great. I'm super
I'll
happy.
I'll try to find to be concise. So I mean, the story with Amplitude, we had some very shallow touch point with them.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a discussion on Hacker News where I think we launched June, and Spencer, Amplitude CEOs, replied something super nice at the time.
Mhm.
I think that was probably the main interaction with them. And then I probably met a few people from Amplitude across the years, and they had reached out many years ago saying like, hey, we're in the same space. We think you guys are doing something exciting. It would be nice to meet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think at the time we were just like, let's not just, lose, at our attention from what we're doing. Let's try to come up with something net new, unbiased, and let's just, keep shipping and not have this conversation. And Amplitude was not the only one company. There were a few others. The things reopened with them. I think it was 6 months ago, 5 months ago. Time flew.
So it's been quick.
Again,
It's been pretty quick.
it's been very quick.
Yeah.
So those things happen very quick, or they rarely happen. That's something I learned too, because you can build conviction pretty fast on this stuff.
Mhm.
So the story for us was we had been approached by a PE fund, I think in Jan or Feb, who pretty quickly came up with a LOI to acquire the company. And at this time we had an email loop, a very old email loop with Amplitude, and we decided to reopen the conversation. We're like, hey, we're going through these discussions. Maybe there will be some acquisition of the company. Would love to actually catch up. Would love to hear where you guys at, how you're thinking about the market, and see if there is any synergies we can go after. And then what happened is the process was extremely smooth. We just met a lot of people there. We met 15 people there.
Wow.
Yeah, in 2 weeks. From, head of product to one of the first founding engineers to, of course, the founders to product leadership, designers, like a lot of people. And I think what we found that was super surprising is just how great these people were. We had always objectified incumbents or competition as like, this evil company.
They're the bad guys.
They're the bad guys in like this large building. Like we're in a garage in Europe. They're like in a huge building in US, we were doing like events, Lenny's events, Rachiski events, meetups in Paris. They were doing like meetups at Crillon, which is a 5-star palace. We're like, oh no, we're the outliers. This kind of bullshit. And then we just met the guys and we're like, oh my God, they're just like extremely smart, extremely low ego, very genuine people, and extremely hard worker. And when we saw that with Ferruccio, my co-founder, we were like, oh, no surprise. They've been, their names have been coming up so many times across the years. Like, those are like great, those are
You
like,
want to work with them.
yeah. We're like, we could definitely see ourselves working with those guys, right? And so then we talk about the vision, and the vision was very aligned. Where we wanted to bring the companies was literally the same destination. I think the sequencing was a bit different, but they were also very eager to hear our sequencing and how we could maybe help them navigate some stuff. And obviously they had taught us so much about the market because they were the company who opened the market, who created the market. They coined product analytics. So we owe them like so much. We told them like, look guys, we looked up to you. Like you guys have created that market. I think it's pretty fantastic. And so there was this PE fund. We had less and less confidence that this was the right thing for us. The main reason was that it was extremely high risk to work with those guys. we would have been C-levels, and we would have again taken a huge incentives on the equity or the potential value of the equities. So it was just extremely high risk, high reward kind of role. With Amplitude, what it felt is that we could make that thing happen. It just felt like we could complement what they wanted. We could bring something. They would, value our knowledge, and we could change together for the best some of the aspects of the company, because there's just many things they're doing, but there's some stuff where we thought we could really contribute. And then it was also very just a human thing, right? Like we see ourselves working with these guys for the next coming years. And that is very uncommon for my co-founder and I, because when you build your own startup, usually you're like, I can't work for someone else.
Yeah.
So that came up, we're like, okay, that sounds great. So that's a little bit like the rough reason why we went with Amplitude. Along the way, there were some crazy stuff. We can talk about the M&A process, but there was some crazy stuff where my co-founder was poached by the fastest growing company in the world.
Yeah, I remember.
So, he declined very quickly. He declined within a week. But at this point, the conversation was like, if that guy wants to join this company, I would have to respect it.
Yeah.
Even though it would like put us in a really bad situation and the rest of the team.
Yeah.
But it might be one in a lifetime kind of situation. So I would have to respect it.
But a week might have felt like
a week was
a lot more, right?
Yeah.
Because for that week, I remember you posted about, I almost lost my co-founder.
Yeah.
And that must have been, I mean, at this point, at that stage,
yeah,
it's hard.
It's super hard. And I think people don't, I think this is the truth with like entrepreneurship. It's hard from the beginning, how you get your idea. Maybe you leave your job, you find a co-founder, you pull out a beta, get first users, maybe some funding, then all the ups and downs. And then if you decide to go through this kind of, acquisition, acquire discussion, you need to cross the line running. It's not like, oh yeah, it's going to happen. Like, let's wrap it up. No, it's like, we try to make a deal with this vibe coding company. It was one of the people we were talking with.
Yeah.
And out of that deal that I tried to build at the time, it turned out into like, look, we're just going to try to poach, your co-founder.
Yeah.
But in a super nice way. Like the way I sound is like, those guys try to, steal my co-founder. It wasn't the case. It was like, we met for a lot of reasons. It didn't match, but there was this kind of love story with my co-founder,
Yeah.
But I think the great end story here is that Ferruccio was like, no, actually, I believe more in joining Amplitude. And I believe more, moving to San Francisco, moving to their office, and really try to reinvent together what, Pragmatic and all the other products they have are going to be in the next couple of years, right? So yeah, that was kind of the nutshell story. There is much more around this process.
Yeah, of course.
There is much more.
No, but I like those stories because it shows that it's also a human story. It's not just what you said about the co-founders' mindsets back at Amplitude. Like this with Ferruccio, it shows that all of this is also human, not just for money, for getting acquired and everything. This is cohesion is super important. We also have the other stories, with co-founders that don't get along, everything splits. This is the actual opposite, but it's pretty cool to see how these stories are made with people first, and then tech goes after.
Yeah, 100%. No, 100%. One of the first reasons why startups fail is because of a founder disagreement.
Yeah.
And so founders getting along and trusting each other, I think having mutual respect for each other is one of the key of success. You need to carry that through the entire journey. I think this is what I shared in the post. If you don't if it doesn't work with your co-founder, those conversations are going to be extremely hard, and the odds that things explode at this moment, I think, are really high, because it's kind of a prisoner dilemma. There's many situations in this conversation where one can benefit more from taking an async decision.
Yeah.
So there was a world where Ferruccio was joining this company, right? There was a world where I would join the P fund with the rest of the team. There was a world where we agree and, you know, we joined the P fund. There was a world where we agree and, you know, we joined Amplitude.
Yeah.
And there were a few others. Those are like stuff, if you don't, like the way we handled that, by the way, which is, I think, super fun, because people wonder like how this happened. This was super random. Ferruccio and I, we would go to coffees together for like 3-4 hours, and we would just talk. And at some point we realized that we were not the only one in the conversation. Our wives were also part of the conversation, because mine was whispering into my ears and his was also whispering the same. So at some point we were doing this coffee for hours in Paris, in the Marais, where there would be Ferruccio, me, and our wives, and we would have conversation, the four of us, on like what decision we wanted to take and why. And people who were trying to convince each other that this was more interesting, this was less interesting. And there would be situation, this is hilarious. Like, this is just the hard truth, and I have to say it. There would be situation where our wife would be more confrontational than we were. Yeah. And they would be like, literally like, you know, energetic is the word, maybe almost like, you know, annoyed. And Ferruccio and I would be the one to calm down things, saying like, look, girls, like, chill out, like, let's agree, let's have a proper discussion. So it's also one of the other truths that needs to be mentioned. You're not only operating by yourself. If you have a family, you're also making this conversation with other people that are involved. I don't know if you're like taking care of your parents, not my case, not the case of Ferruccio, but maybe, you know, you also have other consideration. Like, you may have like tons of consideration. And when you have these discussions, they all bubble up and you can't ignore them, right?
Of course.
And that's what people don't often see, you know, when they hear the stories. When I see an article that says blah, blah was acquired or blah, blah joined, I think about the coffee we did with Ferruccio and our wives. And I can picture that. And I'm like, what is the, like, what's the story?
Coffee? What's their coffee
right?
story?
Yeah. I think it's fun. I think it's important to just, you know, mention that.
But it's true, because this is something that people don't say and most people don't post about it. That'd be a great post, by the way.
The coffee thing?
Yeah, the coffee thing. Yeah. No, because...
You know what? The rule about posting this stuff is, that's actually one that Ferruccio told me. The more uncomfortable it feels, the more interesting it might be to people. Yeah. That's it. If you think about something and you're like, I can't share it, it's too, you know, personal or too bragging or too specific to me, or that's something people want to read.
Yeah, but that's, I mean, it's usually something that people don't share, but we're humans first. And I mean, we live in a world where everyone's in Dubai. They got their Series A was 100 million or something like that. You know, it's just over exaggerated, and people think it's the only truth that there is. But the fact is, when
people want to see other humans, they want to be able to relate, and it feels so good to put those stuff out there. Like just putting those stuff that are personal out there feels so good. Like, I could have, like, you know, hurt myself with this story of, you know, Ferruccio and I, we had to involve our wife, and like, we should be like men running companies. Why would we have to listen to a wife and like make a collegial kind of decision, even though it's our company, and we should be like the powerful, like, gender in the, but like, no, screw that. Like, that's not true. That's not the reality. The reality is, like, you have to involve whoever is important in your life when you make such important decisions, such as, you know, selling, changing your life business, your location, and stuff like that. And if that's the truth, like, people want to see that. And when you put it out, it feels so good. Like, this story now, it's not mine, it's yours. It's the podcast story. It'll travel somewhere, I don't know where, but now it's not on me, right? And that is for something I'm grateful for, you know?
Oh, thank you so much for sharing. So maybe getting back to Amplitude, um, what what are you doing with them to make sure that June's DNA doesn't get diluted
Hmm.
now that you're a part of a bigger organization?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think first of all, when you join another company, you what's happening is like things are gonna mixed, right? It's
Mm,
not like I bring my DNA, I want to replace the DNA, or the company that you joins doesn't usually want you to join so that you fully lose where you're coming from, right?
mm,
So it's kind of a mix of like what are things that you want to bring that they don't have, and what are things that they're gonna give you, right? So the way I think about this one is when I started my role, so that was 3 weeks ago. It does feel a lot more already
mm.
because I worked on like literally
Yeah,
two different
I
strategies
can
in
imagine.
3 weeks. Um, I listened a lot in the beginning. I tried to understand the energy, the culture, the thing they're great at, the thing I could benefit from, like the things we could benefit from, right? And the things I've seen is the insane engineering driven culture. Like that I've never seen it. Engineers at Amplitude are so empowered
Mm,
to work on stuff that they are shipping like crazy. They're shipping like faster than almost any company I've seen before at this scale, for sure.
wow.
But one of the drawback
Mm-hmm.
is that if anyone can ship and is empowered,
Yeah.
you may have a little bit of a scattered execution or strategy, right? So I think on that fold, it's something
Mm,
we can bring, right? Um, so I'm trying to find the right balance of like listening and seeing what they're great at and absorb that. And then when I see stuff that don't work, to share back things, right? And there are multiple flavors of that. One is in the day to day, like this is how I'm thinking, writing to people. We should work like that.
mm,
You guys are working like that. Have you considered this? Why are we not doing it this way? Just ask questions. Be trying to be very genuine and understand where people are coming from.
mm,
And then there's some stuff that are a bit more at the org level. Like one of the first thing I did was a product tear down, which was sharing my honest feedback of my first 2 weeks of experimenting
mm-hmm.
the product, and I shared that with probably too many people, probably like 50 people,
Mm-hmm.
and I try to be extremely honest. Like this is not working. This is not. This is not. This is not. This is not.
Mm-hmm.
And then wrap it up with just a nice wrapper saying like, am I an outlier here, or
Mm,
is it what other customers experience? I'm not saying this is the hard truth. I'm just saying like, if the customer we're going after looks somehow similar to me, then I think we should consider my feedback. If they're not because I'm missing something, then that's fine. This is just my feedback. This is one user feedback, one user interview. And so I think it's about finding this, this
mm,
balance. What I'm really, really, really grateful for is that Spencer, the CEO, has huge trust into Ferruccio and me,
mm-hmm.
and has told me repeatedly that he wants me to take ownership. He wants me to drive stuff. He wants me to come up with my vision of things, communicate that, bring people with me. There is this thing that companies are doing that I didn't know about before.
Mm-hmm.
One of the main reasons why acquisition exists,
Mm-hmm.
of course, it can be for the technology. And in some cases, the technology makes sense. In some cases, the technology is a bit less important. And
Yeah.
what you really want to buy is the founder mindset.
Mm.
And I dismissed that a little bit in the beginning. I was like, I think I'm smart. I hope I'm smart. But why would I be smarter to, someone else
Mm.
at Amplitude? The truth is that founders have some unique sort of energy. And if you place those people at the right,
Mm.
places at the company, you
Mhm.
can get amazing things done, especially when it comes to reinventing the future.
Mm.
If you need a mandate to do that, to have the right to reinvent the future, you need some sort of like green flag that says, we trust you, we think you can do it, and go for it. And if you fail, then we all fail, right?
Yeah.
But I think that I didn't expect. That I learned it actually 6 months ago. I met a founder who had sold his company to Datadog.
Yeah.
And it was like, dude, I do whatever I want. I was like, what do you mean you do whatever I want? It was like, yeah, the founder of Datadog told me, like, look, you're going to join my company.
Mm-hmm.
My company is huge. My company is aging. I want you to break the walls. And I want you to not accept a no for granted. And I want you to get back to me as much as you want,
Mm-hmm.
if you feel there is something dysfunctional with my company. And this is exactly what Spencer, the CEO of Amplitude, has told us. He told us, like, look, guys, you're going to join companies, you're going to join teams, you're going to do stuff, you're going to see each other, like, every week, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. I want you to be like my direct channel. Like, when you see something broken, let me know. When I think you guys can push some unique streams
Mm-hmm.
in my company, I will let you know. And when I say that, I don't mean that I am more important than the other team members. I think that's super important to underline. But what it means is that I can bring something different to the company, and I think this is the exciting part. I don't know if you wanted to get into that, but it's the exciting part of, like, moving from your own startup to someone else's startup. If they support you, if they're, like, super open, if they believe in you and your capacity, then I think you can have a lot of fun working for someone else's startup.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get into. Like, what are you most excited to learn or do differently in this new chapter?
Yeah, so learn is I think the main things for me would be, I had worked in a 600 people company before, Intercom, but never with such a mandate to change things. I was part of a department, part of the team. I was having impact. Our team was having a lot of impact, but it was a lot more like following a strategy that we were given.
Yeah.
I think at Amplitude, I'm given the right to contribute to the strategy and shape it. And given the impact of the company, the thousands of customers they have, I think it's awesome. Like, this is really, really awesome mandates in a way.
Yeah.
And an awesome opportunity to do both entrepreneurial work, but at scale. Plus, because the fact it's contained, I'm going to work on one specific topic. I can't disclose too much, but you'll see more about it online. Because it's contained, it's also, it's not like vertiginous. It's like, I know what I need to do. It's not like we have to do everything. Like, we need to do everything, but I need to do one thing, right? So that I'm super, super looking forward. And then the other thing is, first time I work for an American company.
Yeah.
So
Different.
it's different.
Yeah.
I know it's different. And I think there's a lot to be learned from this culture. I think it's such a different culture. And I think they're great at some stuff. I can sense that they're great at some stuff. And I want to learn this stuff.
And so, because we usually criticize what happens in France, because that's also one part of what we do,
Yeah.
We have a culture of excellence, and because of that, I think it's because of that culture of excellence, we tend to really criticize things because we think we can do better. Is there anything that you think France brings and your French upbringing brings that you have to offer to the States? Because we usually, the goal of this podcast is to actually have, French product people and entrepreneurs like shine abroad, because I do think we have some things to offer, and we do have 35 unicorns, if I'm not mistaken, right now. So there's some things we're probably doing right,
Yeah.
And Linear, I hope I'll have him on the podcast at some point. Now, like, they're a great example of that. Also, there's tons of companies that do things, really great.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you can pinpoint that's your Frenchness, let's say, that gives you an edge?
Do you have one in mind on your end?
For me, I think we're pretty straight to the point. This is something that I've been told. Um, so personally, I'm a bad example because I've lived in 10 different countries, so I'm a pretty bad example. But I think it comes from my French upbringing as well. Um, I'm really straight to the point. Like there's no sugarcoating. I don't mind if I hurt you. You know, like I'll say what I think is true and what I think is fair.
Yeah.
And some companies in the US, they tend to be highly political. It's not going to be like super obvious, but people are going to have tons of filters.
Interesting.
And in certain situations, that probably has been my downfall. In certain situations, it's been super refreshing for some people. That's what I've been told. And we've managed to, you know, take things to another level because of just being like straight to the point. This is the honest truth.
Yeah.
And this is, you know, how we're going to get to the next level because the things we don't say are the ones that hurt the most.
That's a very good point. This is a really good point, actually. Cool. Yeah. From what I've seen so far, Amplitude is not political. I think they managed to keep the org charts extremely flat. And that prevents kind of politics because you don't need to convince 20 people to make a decision.
Yeah.
And unless you do things, it's going to be very visible that you don't do them, right? So you can't really hide behind, you know, appearances.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they've protected themselves at least at the R&D, on the R&D side of things, by keeping the org chart that way. But I'm sure there is a bit of politics here and there, and maybe at some level it's a bit more political, right? So I'll get to see. But to answer your question on what I think Europe has to bring, I do think that. So I do think that the cultural diversity in Europe is bigger than the one in the US. So all Americans are extremely different. But I do feel that, you know, the School of Product Management in Germany post Rocket Internet, the School of Product Management in Ireland, extremely high friendly, extremely rational, and very detached, like, you know, very British kind of humor and behaviors. And the School of Product Management in France, which is, you know, as you say, about being the expert of the thing, like just read 20 books and become the expert of the thing. If you mix this stuff together and you amplify that to, you know, 27 countries we have in Europe, is bringing such a diversity of methods, point of views, understanding of how you can build products, compared to a mostly unified kind of country. I mean, the US is far from being unified right now, but and I think, you know, like when I work in all these companies, the diversity of the people was insane. Like there would not be two people from the same nationalities. I think it's a bit less true in the US. In San Francisco, I think you probably have a majority of Americans that, of course, come from different origins because this country is pretty young, nonetheless. And I think that is like, I'll bring that, and I think Europeans can bring that. You can never really assume your rights in Europe when you do product management, because there will be someone in the room with a different culture and a different point of view and a different perspective on things, a different understanding of the markets, and that mixed, you know, create the richness of our environment. And that's why it's also the country, right? The nature of the country. Like France is like a mix of so many, you know, so many countries. Like that's what I don't understand when people say, you know, people with different skin colors are not French. Like this country is a mix by nature.
It is.
It is. So that is something interesting, I think. And yeah, I think Americans can pick up on that super quickly because they have such a strong empathy for
True.
people,
Mm.
which is one of the things I love the most about these people. But I do think that unfortunately they were not raised or they haven't grown in such diverse environments,
Mm.
or they have worked in such diverse work environments like we have the chance to do in Europe. Well, they can't invent it, you know.
Yeah. Just to wrap things up, maybe looking back at your journey with June, what's one thing you wish you had known before you started?
Wow. There's just so many. There are so many. I don't know where to start. You need to. You need to. There is this graph I love from Christoph Jens, who is the founder, one of the founders of Point Nine Capital, a German-based VC firm that is or was our seed investor, and they're the best. They're like really the best investors we could dream of. And he has this chart where he says that to become like a sustainable business, you need to find the sweet spot between the amount you're charging per customers and the amount of customers you can charge. And this is something we always knew, kind of like we need a lot of small customers or, fewer bigger customers. And they have what they call the dead zones, which are zones that if you're in, you're like screwed because you are going to be too few customers at a too low price, basically.
Yeah.
And I always assumed that the motion to get outside of those dead zones were very fast. Like you could start with very few customers, you charge $50, but then you can move to 10,000.
Yeah.
Right? Or you maybe have like a couple of customers spending like $500 with you, but you can easily move to 5,000. I think the truth is that it's hard to move along those lines, and you better from the get-go find the right balance, the right sweet spot, because it's going to be very hard. So we started PLG charging $50, 100, 150.
Yeah.
After 2 years, we're like, there's no way we get 10,000 customers.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's way too much. Right. So then we're like, okay, let's try to get 5,000, right? Or 3,000. And then we move to like our pricing move at the time to $400 or $500. We're like, okay, that sounds great. We executed on that for 2 years. And then we're like, 3,000 customers in B2B that you have to onboard manually each of them to get set up. You're like, that's a lot, right? That's a grind. And so what I wish I knew earlier is the importance, I think, to charge as much as you can in a way, even though that say what I mentioned about PLG, kind of try to find the highest price point you can charge. Because if you can differentiate in the mid markets, it's pretty as hard as differentiating in the bottom of the bottom of the market, right?
Yeah,
so and there were a couple of like people that did something in the flavor of June for more mid market, even enterprise markets, and just took a slice and just tried to differentiate in a different way. And when you're able to charge a lot more, you're just able to re-inject stuff. Like we saw pricing has almost like a weakness. Like those guys are expensive. The truth is the people that charge the most are the most successful because you can re-inject that money in your company to then build again the right thing for those customers. And so instead of thinking, okay, we shouldn't charge too much because people want a better price to value, blah, blah, just find the value that justifies the price. And always assume that if you charge less, you're less well positioned to actually grow. And so you really want to, in my opinion, you want to charge the max you can. And so I think that's something that I do regret. We charge 50, then 100, then 500. And every time I look back, I was like, why did we even charge 50? And at the end of June, we were charging 500 on average, but like sometime 1,000, sometime 2,000. And we're like, we don't want to charge 500 anymore. Like those are not the customers we want to have.
Yeah.
And so, just the one thing I now know on pricing is not a weakness. It is quite the opposite. It is a forcing traction to force you to deliver the right value and to capture that value as much as you can to then accelerate your company. And that is the problem. This is the problem of like being a product founder. Like you want the best products, blah, 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 and so on. That's not how B2B SaaS work. You sell to enterprise with sales, with IT departments. There's many considerations.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing came from me, my personal behavior. I'm a persona that if I can avoid, I have changed, but if I can avoid to pay for a service, I would often avoid to pay it. So I was one of the latest user of Spotify because I was like, I'm not going to pay $10 for Spotify. Now I use Spotify like 10 times a day, right? But at the time I was like, no, I can download my music. I can have it on iTunes. I can have my iPhone sync to my iTunes. I was one of these guys. Like, I was so late. I was such not an early adopter, in many industries. And I tend to listen to myself for some of this kind of pricing decision. I was wrong. Like, this is not how the market looks like. The world is made of people that go to work, make money, and use that money to make their life easier, to spend money on stuff, right? And you have to admit that. And it took me a while to realize that I was like just such a bad spender, man. I'm a bad spender. And anyway, that's second thing I wish I knew earlier, that I shouldn't listen to myself too much in terms of what B2B SaaS spending it looks like.
Okay. Maybe just a couple of super quick questions, as rapid fire as can be, Hardest thing about being a founder?
Never disconnecting, like the constant, being on all the time. I think I could manage well my energy through the days, trying not to be too stressed and so on. But the fact that you can never disconnect over time, over 3, 4, 5 years, starts to really, really be draining.
Okay.
Yeah. So you need to find ways to fully disconnect, right?
One book that you think every product manager should read. Doesn't have to be about product.
Yeah, there is. Good question. I think one I liked, haven't read it for years. It was called Product Leadership.
Yeah.
By Martin Erickson, one of the founders of Mind the Product. Most people probably haven't heard about Mind the Product. It used to be the biggest conference on product management. They used to have one of the best blogs and so on. Martin Erickson, they call him the giant, is like this 2-meter guy, 2-meter tools guy and so on, has written this book called Product Leadership. TLDR, product management is not management. It's something else. You don't manage. And I think it's just one of the early things that PMs need to know. They usually understand it really, easily, very fast, but it's counterintuitive because you think product management, you manage, you don't manage, you do something else. You lead, actually. Okay. You give a direction, you show people where you go, and you convince people to go in the same direction. And then that leadership excites people so that they will do the best job of their life. That is what product management is about. So the title is completely wrong. It should be called something else. It should be called product leadership or something else. And this book is about this thesis, about really understanding what it means to do product management. I think it's super old. I think it's 10 years old, but it's a basic of product management. And I don't know, it's not too famous, I think. So people might get value out of it.
Okay. And double question. One advice for people getting into product and one advice for people starting their own company, new founders.
So one advice for people starting into product: find the right company, find companies with the right methods, the right process, the right culture, the right philosophy. And it doesn't matter if you don't. I think it's better to start not in product management, in a company with the right culture, and you get exposed to that, and then you find a bridge internally to move to that, than getting the first product manager, product owner role in a company that is not gonna give you the right formation. I think
perfect.
Yeah, because if you're ill trained, you're gonna suffer from that for many years. So that's for PMs.
And for founders?
For founders, I would say think get some momentum would be probably my main advice. I think, there is all this reason why startup fails, like founders disagreement and so on. We talk about a few of them. I do think that not having momentum is actually the main reasons why you figure out or not figure things out. So finding the setup that will give you the momentum, I think is P0 for a founder. So whether that means having another founder that is full-time if you're full-time, not someone just, doing code on the weekend, whether that means having some basic table where you can gather, whether it's an incubator, an accelerator, a table at your place, whatever it is. A bit of founding. If you want to work full-time on something, I think you should, because that's the only way you can figure it out. Find people who are willing to give you like 20K, 30K. I'm sure you can find those people. And this buys, a year of salary for 2 people, and you can already start. Those are just very, hygienic stuff you don't think about. But I think when you build a startup, you need this momentum. And unless you have this baseline, the very, very basics, and you can free your time, free your brain, and be fully focused on your startup, I think it's almost impossible to make it. Because what founders need to understand is that against them, there will always be someone who is full in, and they will lose against this person if they're going to full in, right? And if you're not willing to admit that, if you're like, no, I can do it on the side, or no, I can have a CTO just build a product on the weekend, or no, I don't need to be 100%. I can do 4 days a week, and on the 5th day, I do freelance. If you're not willing to admit that, then you have a problem. You have to understand why you're having this problem, why you're not willing to admit it. Maybe you're not willing to give up on your life balance. Maybe you're not willing to take financial risk. Maybe you are not emotionally prepared. And those are all great problems to have, and it's fine to have them. And maybe you don't want to solve them. But if your real life goal is to be a founder, you have to acknowledge them and you have to go after them, but you can't omit them. You can't say they don't exist. And I've seen so many founders I love, so many friends or friends of friends that get into entrepreneurship without this hygiene preparation because they're not willing to face those problems, and they will fire back at some point. And it's hard, man. It's hard. It's really hard to tackle these problems, right? And that's why not everyone is made for entrepreneurship. And that's why even I did it for many years. It was hard for me too. And it's just one of these challenges. And, like everything in life, nothing is easy.
Dude, thank you so much for all these insights. I'm so happy you came on the podcast. I'll say it in front of the camera. Amplitude, said it twice now because I commented sooner on LinkedIn. Amplitude, congratulations. You've hired your 2 next super weapons, and I'm really sure that you're going to do a great job there. You're probably going to innovate. I can't say innovate because then we're going to go back to the innovation department inside the company, and that doesn't work. But I'm really sure that you're going to make a difference there, and super happy that you came here and you shared like a lot of personal stories. That means a lot.
Thanks for having me, Amplitude. I'm glad. I'm glad to have them too. So can't wait to see what we do together. And thanks for listening to me for so long. It's been like I've been talking and talking and talking. So I hope there was some valuable stuff for people listening.
For sure. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much, Enzo.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Le French Product. If you enjoy this conversation, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification button so you don't miss any of the next episodes. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, be sure to follow the show and leave a review. It really helps us grow. See you next time. À bientôt.